Hello there, Batmaniacs! Welcome to our epilogue. After spending the last 4 years reviewing every single episode of Batman the Animated Series, we're going to officially finish things up here in 2024 by covering 5 animated feature films that tie in directly to the DC Animated Universe and this iteration of the Caped Crusader. First up is a classic that was released in theaters back in 1993, a motion picture that many fans consider the greatest of the Dark Knight's movies, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Does it still hold up over 30 years later? Is it really Batman's best cinematic outing, or is that hyperbole? Let's dive in and find out. A dark new figure has shown up in Gotham City and is murdering a select group of career criminals. Batman gets drawn into the fray when this shadowy reaper is thought to be the Dark Knight gone off the deep end. With the police on high alert, Bruce Wayne's old flame, Andrea Beaumont, arrives in town, holding secrets of the past that come to light through flashbacks and her interactions with Batman. After the first season of BTAS, there was talk within Warner Brothers of giving the team behind the show a movie set within the same universe. Story ideas were immediately pitched, including the concept that eventually turned into the Season 2 episode Trial. That idea saw Bruce encountering his greatest foes from inside Arkham Asylum. Separately, a Two-Face outline called Two-Timer was proposed, which later became the first 2 issues of the Batman and Robin Adventures comic series. Ultimately, Alan Burnett led the charge, conceiving of a story where the goal was to keep Bruce and Batman far from the show's regular rogues gallery. Despite how Burnett's original intention sounded, series regular The Joker does play a rather large role in the movie. He doesn't show up with his recognizable face until halfway through, but he's very cleverly woven into the main story, even fleshing out some of his own backstory. Burnett also wanted to explore the reasons Wayne put on the cape and cowl in the first place and explore how his life was almost very different. He was quoted in the book Batman Animated as saying, "I wanted to do a big love story with Bruce because we hadn't really done it on the TV show. I wanted a story that got into his head." After the script was completed, with help from Paul Dini, Martin Pasko, and Michael Reaves, while early into the production process, Warner decided to move the film from a home release to a theatrical one. They increased the budget to a reported $6 million and moved up the production team's schedule by a considerable amount. Mask of the Phantasm was completed in about 8 months, whereas a standard project of the same size would have taken well over 2 full years. They scrambled to adjust the storyboards to fit more of a theatrical look and rushed toward the finish line of a Christmas Day 1993 opening. Dong Yang handled the animation services with layouts provided by Spectrum, so it's no wonder this movie looks so amazing. Series co-creator and credited co-director of the film, Eric Radomski, spoke about expanding the detail of the already fantastic backgrounds from the show. These settings are gorgeous and up the ante in cinematic flair. The backgrounds in the World's Fair sequences look especially incredible, as it's an appropriate allegory for Bruce and Andrea's relationship, bright and hopeful at first, yet deserted and barren later on. I always liked Bruce carrying some of this hope with him by modeling his Batmobile on the optimistic automobile of the future that was once on display. Plus, when we return years later, they could all go ham at the World Fair. Everything about the graveyard scene makes it my personal favorite, though. That sequence is as memorable as it gets. The CG animated intro of Gotham deserves a special shout out too. I love how that looks. It was played over the beginning of a wonderful score by Shirley Walker. Apparently, the singers were chanting the last names of Bruce Timm, Eric Radomski, and Alan Burnett, along with a few others involved with the production, backwards. The rest of Walker's music is as great as we expected from the series, but with more room to play with in the overall scope. She would later say in an interview this was probably her best composition. Future Dark Knight trilogy composer Hans Zimmer was even involved in the process as a session player. He was playing the synthesizer on the movie's ending credits song, I Never Even Told You. A very 90s credits ballad that always made me think of Seal's Kiss from a Rose at the end of Batman Forever. Now that your rose is in bloom, a light hits the gloom. Probably the only area where Batman Forever beats Mask of the Phantasm. The movie ended up making its release date of December 25, 1993, but was only in theaters for a few weeks and played almost exclusively at matinee showtimes. Warner Brothers barely marketed the film, and Mask of the Phantasm grossed a total of $5.8 million, $12.3 million in 2024 money, during its small theatrical run. By the time April rolled around, the film was already available on home media, including VHS and Laserdisc. Does anyone out there have this thing on Laserdisc? Send me a video of that bad boy playing on a CRT set. Anyway, while a financial waste in cinemas, Mask of the Phantasm cleaned up on home video, selling well with high marks from critics. Good old Siskel and Ebert even gave it a positive review after, not surprisingly, missing it in theaters.
Batman Mask of the Phantasm, a Batman animated feature that was made in 1993, and Roger and I never reviewed it, and as far as I'm concerned, we made a big mistake because it's terrific.
They really did have a story, more of a story than the movies. And the characters, and they pause and they think, and they have feelings and motivations, and you get involved in it.
Speaking of the home release, the film is included in the 2018 animated series Blu-ray set and comes with two ways of watching. When you click the Play Movie button on the menu screen, you'll have a choice between the theatrical presentation and the television presentation. I don't know about you, but when I see options like that, I usually go with the theatrical version to see the movie in what I would perceive to be a better format. But I'd be wrong in this case. When you click the television presentation, a block of text appears that explains this is the purest way to see the film. When the decision was made to release the movie in theaters, the top and bottom of the frame were masked off, forming a widescreen aspect ratio. This cropped some of the picture. Watching the television version in the box 4:3 format allows all of the frame to be seen as originally intended, so if you're ever presented with the choice, I'd suggest going with the open matte viewing experience. Unfortunately, Max and the more recent 4K disc release currently only show the cropped theatrical version. Whatever way you decide to see the film, it really is an outstanding piece of art to behold. This art style is breathtaking to see in full HD on a large screen. Many of the series episodes, of course, have beautiful backgrounds and animation to marvel at, but there's just something different about seeing this style in an even more cinematic display. The set pieces they all came up with are spectacular to experience again and again. Mask of the Phantasm is often praised because of its story and strong characterization. They wanted an inward look at Bruce Wayne and his life-altering decisions. This team nailed it 100%. Concerning the voice acting, this is possibly Kevin Conroy's best work.
Please, I need it to be different now. I know I made a promise, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy.
His range was just on another level. That scene at the cemetery is raw and heartbreaking. His performance shines through as rain falls to create the perfect visual companion. It's not just Conroy who brought his A-game, but the rest of the cast did the same. Mark Hamill's Joker is chilling in this. Don't get me wrong, he's still funny, but he could be a bit goofier in the series. Here, he's more maniacal.
Don't touch me, old man. I don't know where you've been.
That harder edge extends to more violence in the movie as opposed to the show. Batman actually strikes people in this with a pretty decent amount of blood showing up throughout. Bats even knocks out one of Joker's teeth in a brutal battle. Dana Delany as Andrea Beaumont has the ideal amount of confidence, sass, and brokenness that make her character one of a kind in the DCAU. It's a believable notion that she's the one woman Bruce would have given up his mission for. She also delivers one of the coldest lines in Batman history.
You still following your dad's orders?
The way I see it, the only one in this room controlled by his parents is you.
Delaney's vocal chemistry with Kevin was aided by the writing, romantic, idealistic settings, and Shirley Walker's score. Dana was so good, they brought her back to play Lois Lane in Superman, the animated series. The Phantasm was voiced appropriately by Stacy Keach. That design needed an intimidating, creepy voice to go along with it, and Keach more than filled the role.
Your angel of death awaits. You always were a loser, Mr. Bronski.
I gotta say, Abe Vigoda as Sal Valestra created a strong presence as well. His anger and desperation pop off the screen. The character's threatening quality in the flashbacks also help fill out the story. But that character is really known for the most terrifying shot in the movie.
You think you can get me to a hospital? I think I broke my ass.
Hart Bochner, as the duplicitous city councilman Arthur Reaves, also has some standout moments. His effortless, dishonest delivery was spot on, and it was a nice Easter egg by the production team to cast him, since his father, Lloyd Bochner, voiced Mayor Hamilton Hill in the animated series. Hart's most memorable scene occurred after the Arthur character is gassed by the Joker and is interrogated in the hospital by Batman.
Oh, no!
Perfectly played in an uncomfortable yet hilarious moment. Last but not least, I want to mention the always consistent work of Efrem Zimbalist Jr. as Alfred. They up his sardonic level to a 10 here.
A potential madman!
Such rot, sir. Why, you're the very model of sanity. Oh, by the way, I've pressed your tights and put away your exploding gas balls.
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to, sir.
But the writers also gave him a few heavy, dramatic scenes, including the birth of Batman sequence where all he had to utter were 2 words.
My God.
It's an iconic moment in the history of Batman, as it's the first time we see Bruce don the cape and cowl. Alfred's reaction conveys so much with so little. And again, the music enhances the emotion into the stratosphere. It's just an astounding 40 seconds. Zimbalist was able to give us a more fatherly moment with Alfred and Bruce late in the story that is one of my favorite Batman scenes ever.
Vengeance blackens the soul, Bruce. I always feared you would become that which you fought against. You walk the edge of that abyss every night. But you haven't fallen in, and I thank heaven for that.
Peak Alfred. Peak Bat Family moment. Andrea deduces Batman's identity in an excellent callback to their first meeting at the cemetery. This quickly changes her feelings toward Wayne's alter ego. After nearly every member of the Valestra crime family ends up dead by either the Phantasm or the Joker, the Clown Prince of Crime discovers that Andrea Beaumont is indeed the murdering masked Avenger, and the pair engage in a showdown at the now derelict Gotham World's Fair. It's revealed that before he fell in that life-changing vat of chemicals, Joker worked as an enforcer for the mob and killed Andrea's father himself after they were discovered hiding away in the Mediterranean following an ill-fated financial deal. Councilman Arthur Reaves sold their location to Valestra after Carl turned down funding his first election campaign. Blaming the Phantasm murders on her father, Andrea had just reconciled with Bruce, saving him from the Gotham police force and hoping to rekindle their relationship. However, it all comes crashing down at Joker's hideout, where Batman shows up to discover the truth and complicate the situation. Rigged with explosives, the fairground erupts amidst a battle between Batman and Joker, leading to Andrea picking the bones and disappearing in a puff of smoke with Carl's killer. Wayne narrowly escapes the carnage and returns, dejected and heartbroken, to the Batcave. Hidden in the walls, he finds a golden locket containing a picture of a young, happy couple who've been lost to time. Out at sea, Andrea is on the deck of a large cruise ship, where she rejects the company of a fellow passenger, stating that she truly is alone. Back in Gotham, the crusade marches on as Batman heeds the call of the Bat Signal, continuing a life dedicated to duty over love. This story successfully delved into Bruce Wayne's psyche, emotions, and motivations for taking the final step into becoming Batman. Those flashbacks really are devastating to watch, with Bruce proposing and Andrea being forced to flee with her father soon after. I did always think Carl as a red herring for the Phantasm was a little weird though. He was an older guy in the flashbacks, and this would have been over a decade later.
Looks pretty spry for a guy who's got to be, what, mid-80s?
Then again, if the Grey Ghost can be out there holding his own with Batman, I guess Old Man Beaumont would have been believable enough too. Without a doubt, Mask of the Phantasm took influences from several sources. Bruce crime fighting early on and other sequences were inspired by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's seminal Batman Year One comic. The flashbacks were said to follow cues from the classic 1941 film Citizen Kane as well. One more direct inspiration that was denied as intentional by both Bruce Timm and Alan Burnett was Mike W. Barr's 1987 arc in Detective Comics called Batman Year 2. The time period of an early in his career Batman, the love interest that could have changed everything, the love interest's father, the villain, named the Reaper, are admittedly a bit similar. I had previously never read Year 2, so I made sure to go through every page in order to look for these comparisons. While it's definitely not a carbon copy, Mask of the Phantasm bears some resemblance. Barr's story goes down a different path that sees Batman wield the gun that killed his parents while teaming up with Joe Chill, the Wayne's murderer, to stop the Reaper's rampage. It is difficult to discount the more obvious parallels, though. In 2017, Mike W. Barr was interviewed for the magazine Back Issue, which was celebrating the 25th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series. He recounted his perspective on the matter. Quote, "I dropped by the offices of the BTAS staff twice. Each time I saw a different guy industriously typing away with a copy of Batman Year 2 open beside him. That was when I first became aware of their use of Year 2. When I began to see character sketches on the Phantasm character, I immediately approached DC Vice President Paul Levitz, claiming the story and characters I created were being used without payment. Paul at first gave very little credence to my claims until I told him I really want to keep this in the family. I was then given a share in the profits of Mask of the Phantasm and in the Phantasm character itself. I was told it wasn't possible to give me and artist Alan Davis a credit on the cartoon. I have no idea if this is true." End quote. At a 2017 San Diego Comic-Con panel, Timm responded to the comparisons by saying, quote, "People compare the Phantasm to the Reaper from Batman Year 2, but that was almost an accidental inspiration. I had read the story, but I wasn't thinking about it as I designed the Phantasm." Unquote. Alan Burnett also chimed in. Quote, "The villain I drew the most inspiration from was honestly Mysterio from Spider-Man, the idea of someone who could disappear into smoke." Unquote. It's interesting to hear these different points of view on the situation, but it doesn't change the fact that we were given an incredible film to discuss. In terms of additional media, Mask of the Phantasm was adapted into its own comic book and a pair of novelizations. One, by Andrew Helfer, was oriented toward younger readers. The version by Geary Gravel leaned more on the mature side. Andrea Beaumont and the Phantasm would pop up a few more times in DCAU comics and memorably in the Justice League Unlimited episode Epilogue, which took place in the Batman Beyond era. The Batman and Robin Adventures Annual No. 1 from 1996, written by Paul Dini, featured the immediate aftermath of Andrea disappearing with Joker at the climax of the film. She escapes to the tunnels underneath the fairgrounds and hesitates taking her revenge when she realizes Joker isn't mentally the same man who killed her father. They're separated by an explosion, which gives the Clown Prince of Crime his out, and sets up Andrea's return to Gotham 3 years later. The new Batman Adventures episode, Beware the Creeper, gives us another ode to this story by displaying the same picture of the Valestre crime family that was used in the movie. I do love this film, and seeing how it's been embraced by fans and critics is great. Many indeed call it the best Batman movie ever made. Do I agree with that sentiment? Is Batman Mask of the Phantasm the best Batman movie? In my opinion, no. It's in my top 5 theatrical Batman releases, but I think the best live-action movies from Nolan and Burton are better. If this project was meant to be in cinemas from the start and the team was given more time to refine and expand, I think I might have a different opinion. For as grand as the movie is, it's always just felt too short to me. I know the old rule about animated movies was to keep them at that 70-ish minute mark, but I wish this could have been an exception. Joker's inclusion is awesome to see play out because who doesn't love Joker? Again, the writers inserted him fairly naturally into the plot, but I'm just not sure we needed him in this story when everything else was already so compelling. This was the first animated Batman movie to hit the silver screen, so Joker either being a mandate from Warner or the writers having a strong desire to include him was almost a given. I mean, if he wasn't in this movie, we never would have gotten him hiding under the top of that mini skyscraper. It is I, the human building! I really don't have anything negative to say beyond that. It was a big-scale, theatrical-feeling experience that I only think should have been 20 minutes longer. How much of a complaint is that, really? Mask of the Phantasm is a classic for plenty of reasons. It's an achievement. While I think some of the best episodes of the animated series eclipse it, it still deserves all the praise it gets. Small final note. Am I the only one who thought DC Rebirth's Watchmen button tease in the Batcave felt a little similar to Bruce finding the locket here? Was that an homage? Probably not. Next time on Batmay, we plunge into the cold waters of this second DCAU Dark Knight film, Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero. See you then for a cool time.